Kim Baer joining us in studio right now, and we always learn something whenever you come in here, and this morning we're going to talk about something that some folks don't like to talk about.
Right. We're going to talk about wills, living wills, and powers of attorney. A lot of times people will come in and say, you know, I'm married. Why would I need a will? You know, because if I die, everything's going to go to my spouse. All right. Well, yeah, that's true. But what happens in the unlikely event that you're both in a car accident? If you and I are married, and we're in a car accident, and you die first and I die second. Everything that you have is first going to go to me, and then it's going to pass to my relatives. Let's say you despise your mother-in-law, my mom. Well, guess what? Everything you own is going to go to me, and then it's going to go 50-50 to my parents. So
and is that Iowa law?
That's Iowa law. If you have no will, no will, then it goes. It's treated as intestate, and so it passes through those.
Why wouldn't it go to his family?
Because he died first, so everything is going to go to me because I was the living spouse.
Way to go, Lou.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't it go to why wouldn't it go to my family?
Right. So if now that gay marriage is legal here, let's say you and I are married and we're in a car accident.
Yes.
You die first. I die second. So because I was the surviving spouse, I get all your stuff.
Oh.
Then when I die, all your stuff that came to me as part of my estate,
that's yours now.
That's now mine, and so it goes through my family. So your family gets nothing.
Let's keep this more grotesque. What if we both die at the same time? Does my stuff go to my family then?
Well, so the law won't recognize that. There'll be an investigation, and they'll try and figure out who died.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, who died.
Is there like a whole flow chart of who gets what?
There is a whole flow chart. So then what? We do a lot of family law, and so one of the things that we talk to people at the end of the divorce is, do you want a will? Because here's why. Let's say you and I were married and we've got a couple of kids and we have a nasty divorce or even just an agreed divorce. But obviously I've fought hard to get my half of whatever our marital assets are. And tomorrow then, after we got divorced, I'm killed in a car accident. Everything I have, if I have no will, is going to go to the children. And who's taking care of the children now that I'm gone? You. So you're going to be in charge of all of that money that went to the kids if there's no trust in place. And if you are bad with money, well, then I just spent a whole lot of money trying to get my half to only give it back to you. You see what I'm saying?
So it's the reason I left you in the first place, okay?
So when you get a divorce, make sure you get a new
Make sure you get a new will with a trust in it. And people, a lot of times people say, I don't have thousands of dollars to go do that. Wills in Iowa, especially a simple will, you can usually get one done for $400, $500.
It still amazes me how much money that is, though, for a will.
Yeah.
Like, can you not just write stuff down on a piece of paper and have someone sign it?
Then you need witnesses and all of that. And I just had somebody bring in a will that they had done through some organization. I don't, maybe one of those online
legal deals or something like that.
And I read through it, and the most important part with regard to who gets what wasn't in there.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah.
You had to pay extra for that.
Apparently. And I read through it several times, and I kind of went, well, okay, this isn't even worth the paper it's written on. So, and then if you need a trust, because if you have minor kids, I mean, that adds another $100 or so.
And the trust is what? What is a trust?
The trust is, so if you have minor kids, who's going to manage the money that goes to the children, and how is it going to be managed?
Okay.
So, for example, if you have kids under the age of 18, who's going to make sure that the money's getting spent for their schooling and things like that? Then what happens when they're ready to go to school? Are you at age 18 going to hand over, let's say you had a decent sized estate, are you going to hand over $100,000 to an 18-year-old? Probably not, but if you don't have a trust in place under Iowa law, that's what will happen. And so typically what we do is we sit down with people and we say, all right, when do you want your child to get this money? Do you want them to get it in increments over time? Do you want it first to be used for their college education and then they can get some later? So it's a very personal decision, and we give the trustee a lot of discretion because we don't want you to try and control from the grave. But we want to, and people try to do that sometimes, but we want to make sure that an 18-year-old doesn't go buy a Corvette and have big parties.
Because that's what happens a lot of times. Seriously, it really does.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd like to think families, get along and can handle this situation, I've never seen my family fight more than when my grandfather passed away. And the worst of everybody came out. I'm sure it's the emotion of the situation and everything else, but it's like, it had been so nice to have that piece of paper explain a little bit better about what was going on.
Yeah, because then you can, you can always say, this is what Dad wanted, this is what Mom wanted, so we're not gonna fight about it. You know, another situation that we see a lot in today's society is people, so if I get divorced and I get remarried, and so Lou, let's say you and I got married, and I had been married before, and so I have a child from that previous marriage, and then you and I have a child, and now I'm in a car accident, I have no will. You're gonna get 50% of my stuff, and my child from this previous marriage is going to get 50% of my stuff. Our child gets nothing. Because under the law, the under the law, the presumption is that you, because this is your bloodline, you'll take care of that child. Oh. But as a mother, I would never want to treat my two kids differently. You know, so so it's just it gets really difficult, especially when you have second marriages and you have kids. You know, which is very normal today.
It's common these days.
Okay, now let's go to a different situation. How about some people that might be spending a lot of time together, years together, and they never got married?
Well,
how does power of attorney come into play here for something like that?
So for a power of attorney, what that is that's a legal document that's going to say you can make financial decisions for me if I can't make them, or you can make medical decisions for me if I can't make them. And so you don't have to be married. I mean, it may be that maybe you love your spouse to death, but you wouldn't necessarily trust them because they're not good with money. So maybe for a power of attorney, you would say, if I'm in a coma, I'm in a bad car accident, and I'm incapacitated for a few months, I would want my brother to do the financial
So you can
decisions.
do that too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You can pick somebody, and typically we ask for who's your first choice and who's your second choice. And then we also encourage people to get living wills, which is what do you want to happen if you're on a feeding tube, if you're brain dead, if you're in a coma and they're saying there's no hope, or that the only hope is that you'll be a vegetable. And those things, you know, to know that that's what you wanted, so you don't put your kids or your spouse in the position of having to make those decisions. So, and those documents are pretty cheap. I mean, you know, they're usually $100, $150. So what we try to do is when people come in, we talk to them about a will, a power of attorney, and a living will, and offer them kind of a package deal. Let's just do it all at once. Because as we all know, you do it, you put it in a box somewhere, and then you walk away. And if you didn't do it at that time, you know, we have people call all the time, Mom is in the hospital, can we get, you know, a power of attorney, can we get a living will? Well, can Mom sign the papers? Does she know what she's going to sign? Well, no. Well, I'm sorry, it's too late.
You have to do that ahead of time.
Yeah.
We need to take one little baby step back. So I think I stopped you before you finished your question. If you were together, if a couple was together and they weren't married.
Right, and they weren't married. So that might be, first of all, a question about common law marriage. So let's assume that you're not common law married. Then you certainly can have, I think you and I were talking about this off camera, you can have a power of attorney that says, look, we haven't gotten married, but I do want you to make my financial decisions. I do want you to make my to make my medical decisions. Because what happens is, if we don't do that, then most likely the hospital's going to say, well, you're just a boyfriend, and so Mom and Dad get to make these decisions, you know, and maybe you've been together for, you know, several years, and you don't want your mom making the decisions about whether or not to pull the plug, or you don't want your mom writing your checks, you know. So those types of documents are really important, and we can change them as time goes on, and you know, so.
Yeah, that's why there's people like you to go to, because you can handle all
Well, this is National Preparedness Month. I think that's part of being prepared for what happens in your lifetime. We're about 10 years apart, almost identically.
All of us,
Oh, okay.
When do we start thinking about that?
I say anytime. I mean, if you are concerned about where your things are going to go, where's my stuff going to go, and who's going to get my stuff, then it's easy to do it now. And let's say that maybe it changes and you end up getting married down the road. We can always add a codicil if we need to. You know.
What if you have nothing but debt? Can you decide who's going to that?
That means you're in broadcasting.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I would like this family member to get all my.
Yeah, well, unfortunately not. That's good. Your debt's going to die with you, but your debt will chew up whatever you left.
That's the only time school loans die is when you die.
When you do.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, so obviously a lot of questions and a lot of things, a lot of hoops to jump through, and that's why there's people like Kim to take care of that. This is where you can find her office. I don't know if it could be any easier to find her office than this. You guys know where Vets is? You walk out of Vets Auditorium and walk right across the street, you walk into her office.
Yeah.
That's about as simple as
That's
it can
true,
get.
and free parking.
And free parking right next to the building.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll be right back. It is